I think the number one thought process is only to post when you want to. Like, I have a music video yesterday, but I didn't post today. I think, any other person would be like, how did you not post today? It's your fucking music video is out. Like, if I had a label, they would be hella blowing my phone up. Like, how did you not post today, right?
Right.
But I don't want to post today.
Yeah.
I don't feel motivated to post today. I feel I need a moment. I need to breathe for a second. I really want to go to the gym and I want to like sink into it for a second and then I'll have something to say. So the number one thing is really only post when you have something to say. Otherwise, you're just contributing to the clutter and the bullshit.
And the noise.
Yeah. So on a psychological perspective, I don't want to contribute to somebody else's noise. I want to post only shit that I think is really dope and really sincere. And also, it doesn't work when I'm not inspired. Anytime I really feel that way. Anytime I post something that's like out of necessity, it never performs well anyway. And the whole point is to have it perform well.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business Podcast. I am your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business, the book. Today, my guest is Madame Gandhi.
I said, come and live with me. I get so inspired by you. A yellow love near a purple sea. I'll make the bed and lay a table for two.
Her birth name is Kiran Gandhi. She is an unbelievably inspiring person. She's an activist and a feminist. She's a drummer. She started her career drumming for M.I.A. and Thievery Corporation. She is currently on tour with Oprah as part of the Vision 2020 tour. She's a recording artist, a producer, a speaker, and just a very inspiring person. Oh, and by the way, she has an MBA from Harvard. We get into a lot of really interesting topics throughout this conversation. And we talk about release strategy, and we talk about how she creates her music and how she creates such high production value music videos as an indie artist. It's a really inspiring and interesting conversation. I hope you enjoy. Of course, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ari Herstand or at Ari's Take. And then please sign up for the email list. That can be found at aristake.com, where you'll be notified of all upcoming events and get regular information on the goings-ons in the music industry. Let's get to it. Thank you for joining us, coming on the show. I know you're in the midst of Oprah's 2020 Vision Tour.
You got it.
How is that going?
It's so cool. It's like huge and easy at the same time.
Okay, what are you doing with it?
Well, I'm so used to having to manage the logistics and running the aesthetics and the lighting and managing everything, and then it's my own show, so I'm invested in producing the whole thing.
Totally.
But when you're hired as the drummer on somebody else's show, they're handling production and logistics and aesthetic costuming. So I just get to show up and play drums like I'm 12 again and in a stadium.
Oh my gosh.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So what we do is Oprah, I guess, subtly had attended a Daybreaker party, which is a morning sober dance party. They're amazing.
Yes, incredible.
And I can see that you would connect with them. I feel like spiritually you guys are aligned.
Definitely.
But for those who don't know Daybreaker parties, that we have them here in LA. We have them in 28 cities around the world. And
are you part of it?
I mean, when they founded it in 2014 and 15, I was drumming for them.
Oh, cool.
So that's how I got looped into this gig.
Okay, right on.
But basically, you show up into like a nightclub kind of venue, but it's 6 a.m. and you do yoga with like 100 other people.
Yes.
And then from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., you just dance as if it's midnight.
Sober.
But you're just drinking coffee and green juice and kombucha and apples or whatever.
Yes.
And it's just it's a really positive vibe. I mean, I've seen the whole gamut. I've seen when it really works. I've seen when it feels cheesy. I've seen when it really transcends. And like anything, I think they've gotten it to a really, really inspiring place. But nonetheless, Oprah attended one apparently last year. And so perfect timing because she must have been with her team planning for her tour and commissioned Daybreaker to start every leg of her stadium tour at 9 a.m. to throw a giant stadium-wide dance party for the audience, which is such a mutual flex because obviously Daybreaker, it's just so validating of the concept.
Yes.
But it's also really cool and relevant and like youthful of Oprah to be like, yep, we're gonna have a dance party and then I'm gonna come onto the stage and it's gonna be epic. And it really is. We have a horn section that parades through the crowd. We have songs like in Rolling in the Deep, Adele, and Whitney Houston, and
is it the Hudson Horns that do Daybreaker?
New York? A lot of the members. Sure. We kind of almost have a different squad for each one. We have like about 7 or 8 core members, and then we bring in different people.
Gotcha.
For example, I tour India next month, which is exciting. So they have another drummer. But I'll tell you one thing that I love.
Yes.
I play the first drum beat of the entire tour every time. So I go out on the stage and everyone's just like trickling in because it's 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And they bring the spotlight up, and there I am with my drumsticks and my big dun dun drum from West Africa, and I go dun gak dun dun gak dun dun gak dun gak, and then the other 2 drummers join in, and then we just bring more and more members on the stage and just like elevate for half an hour. So
oh my gosh,
it's a very, very special thing.
Does Oprah come out and dance?
She comes out when we finish.
Okay,
you know,
sure.
she's a proper show business person where she knows there needs to be someone to warm up. The crowd.
The grand entrance.
The grand entrance, yeah.
So are all of these, the dance party is 9 to 11 and then the event starts?
No, it's actually just like 9 to 9:30. And then she gets right on the stage.
Okay.
You know,
cool.
because people are spending a lot for this show and it's a full day long event. And I think it's really cool that she gets on with it. She comes right onto the stage.
Great.
And she's right there as we are leaving. She's there high-fiving us and saying thank you and that was awesome. And they show a video and boom, she kicks it off.
Nice.
But it's fun. I learn a lot of just the production side and the marketing side and really knowing your audience and advertising to the right people. And I wouldn't have found out about it had I not been following Daybreaker. Like, for example, I saw it advertised before I was even offered the gig.
Okay.
But it seems like they were very intentional about targeting the right people because I had no idea that it was happening.
Yeah.
But people who needed to know definitely knew.
Yeah. They're sold out, or at least they're filled.
Yes, sold out.
Yeah. Amazing. Have you done much arena, stadium touring?
My first arena tour.
All right.
Yeah,
wow.
It's so cool.
Yeah. Cool. And these are mostly just like one-offs, right? So you're flying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is my ideal gig. And that's how, I mean, I feel spoiled because that's how the M.I.A. tour used to be. I was going to Harvard Business School full time.
That's right.
And we would do Monday through Friday, butt in my seat. Can't go anywhere. But then luckily it would be a Saturday show, you know, in Poland or like a Saturday show in Japan, like amazing places.
Yeah.
And the tour, you know, somehow they were accommodating. I would fly out at the earliest moment that I could and fly right back.
I'm curious about that because I was watching something where you're talking about the getting your MBA at Harvard while the M.I.A. tour was happening. Did you have to miss much school?
See, I thought I would be able to, but you can't miss school in business school on your MBA program because basically they're giving 80% of the class a 2, which is that's like getting a B. It's fine.
Okay.
80% has to get a 2.
Okay.
So 10% will be the overachievers. They're getting a 1. Fine. Most people don't aim for that. They're just trying to get their foot in and get out.
Yeah.
But they have to give the bottom 10% a 3. They have to. So they're looking for someone because everyone's so qualified. It's really hard to be that bad. If you already got in, you're smart.
Yeah.
So the way they do it is if you don't participate. And if you're not physically there, you can't participate. So it's an automatic ding.
Yeah.
So it was very scary for me because I really couldn't miss the way I thought I'd be able to.
Right.
So I remember sitting there like mapping it out and being, okay, the max I can miss is 2 per class without being given a 3. I'll be on the border, but whether I'm at the bottom of that 80% of the top, it's all the same. And I can say I had this amazing experience. So that's pretty much how I did it. I really did.
What'd you end up with?
I mean, I passed. I got through it.
You got through it.
I got through
fantastic.
It.
Good.
And I didn't get kicked out of either, which was a true miracle. But
nice.
Yeah.
Have you always been fairly academic growing up? I mean,
yeah, I think growing up with 2 Indian parents, I went to a private school in New York City. You know, my parents were trying to get me into Harvard. I mean, not my parents. We are all. I mean, my intention was to be sort of top of my class and go to a prestigious school, and that's what you're sort of. I don't want to say brainwashed. That's a little harsh, but it's definitely the mechanics of the whole system are set up to enable that. And I remember being like, yeah, I love academics, but I would come to life when I'd play music. I'd come to life when I'd play drums or DJ, you know?
Were your parents are they fairly traditional Indian parents?
I think in some aspects they are, and then some aspects they're really future forward.
Okay.
Or if anything, it's half and half. Like my dad is really progressive in many ways, and then fairly disciplinarian and sort of academics overachiever.
Immigrants or first gen?
Yeah, first generation.
First gen.
Yeah,
okay,
definitely. Cool. And then my mom is very much, she's an Aquarius, you know, she's like the future and unconditional love, and she just loves the youth and new ideas, and she loves things that are fresh, and like she just gets it, you know?
Yeah.
Even for me having a queer identity, I think that was something that I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. But it just, it was just so effortless. Like I never had this moment where I was like, I'm gonna come out to my parents. Like I personally didn't feel the need to do that because I always felt like my queerness was from a place of like personal liberation. Like you're almost bypassing the parts of the patriarchy that are problematic. For me, a queer identity means that like whoever I'm attracted to, regardless of their gender, is someone that I might choose to be with. But yeah, it's been really empowering and rewarding to see both my parents just very normal about it because they see me successful in other areas.
Totally. Have you had conversations with your parents about, I mean, have you brought home a woman and then had to kind of have that conversation, or how
you know what's
that...
cool is like I thought with my first partner who I had, my first girlfriend when we were like 22, I thought I was like fooling everybody. I was like, this is my really good friend, da da da. And my mom was like, everyone was just like, you don't need to do that. Like it's cool. Like this is your girlfriend. Like and I was almost like humbled by that because I thought I was happy to play along the role of like, this is my roommate, this is my best friend, which a lot of queer folks have to do with their parents. Even if they subconsciously know, just to like keep the waters zen, everyone just like buying into the, elephant in the room. But I felt really humbled that they were like, no, like, it's just your girlfriend. It's fine.
Were you part of a fairly robust Indian community growing up in
New
York?
My parents were. I feel like they were very, Spotify did my bio once. Like Rovi is like a third party bio company that Spotify hires to write artist bios, which is so funny. I think they've changed it now. You can sub in your own. But when they first wrote my bio, they wrote like Kiran Gandhi grew up in a socially upwardly mobile New York City home, like something like that. It was such a funny phrase, but when I looked back, I was like, okay, I can see that. My family had moved to New York. They were doing really well for themselves. My mom was working in the fashion industry. My dad was an investment banker. So they had a really well-known sort of community of people. And the more they did well for themselves, we would have people in our homes, like Eleanor Roosevelt's like family would come to our home. We had Hillary Clinton give a speech at our home. Tony Blair is the prime minister. So we'd be like in our pajamas and stuff meeting, these world leaders. Right. So in that way, yes, it was an Indian community, but it was also an international community.
Sure. And I mean, it sounds fairly progressive.
Yes.
I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. My best friend's Indian, and he comes from a very traditional Indian family.
Yes.
And, it's not necessarily what you expect or hear a lot about from many
Indian families.
Yeah.
I think it's so many things. I think I always felt really critical of Indian families coming to the States, but then creating like a microcosm of Indian life in an American context. I think it's hard for your child because they're living every other aspect in a very American way except for the home. And I find that to be a disconnect. At the same time, I understand that Indian heritage, Indian values are so powerful. Like family is so important in India. And in fact, that's almost why in my own way, I was happy to call my love my best friend just to like make my parents happy.
Sure,
that trumps anything. That overpowers anything. And so I do feel lucky that my parents have this healthy mix of both where we draw from Indian values that really feel good and maybe let go of some of the Indian values that might be controlling or oppressive.
And you lived in Mumbai for a few years, right? How old were you when you were there?
I was 8, 9, and 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was awake and alive, and I loved it.
You
really did love it.
Why did your family go?
My dad actually got a promotion to go and head the Morgan Stanley investment banking division of Mumbai.
Okay.
And so we moved out there, and of course we all went kicking and screaming. Like I wasn't happy to leave my friends in New York, but now I'm so happy because whenever I go to India, like I'll be touring there next month. I have my own connections, my own relationship to India. I feel happy to be Indian. I chose to keep in my artist name my last name because it's so iconically an Indian identity instead of just going with a different artist name altogether. You know, like Kiran, who now performs as Fortet, he's British Indian, or M.I.A. is Sri Lankan British.
Right.
But those names, M.I.A. or Fortet, they don't nod to their Indian or Sri Lankan heritage.
True.
But I did want to consciously incorporate Gandhi in my name, which is my real last name, to preserve that identity.
And Madam, I'm assuming comes from, I mean, a lot of your music deals with female empowerment, celebrating, elevating the female voice. I'm assuming that's where that comes from.
Yes,
Madam?
very much so. And I think the more subtle answer too is when I did live in India, many of the culture and community refers to Indian women after a certain age as Madam, or even younger women like baby Madam. You know, Bardi Madam means bigger Madam, as in like maybe the mother or the grandmother.
Sure.
And I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
You know, I think interestingly, Madam also has like a problematically colonial and colonizer subtext. But at the same time, I just felt like it's a, you know, we're in this culture of like female boss, she's a boss, or like this whole thing of like ladies is pimps too, go and brush that whole thing. But I was like, I don't want to aspire to a masculine thing and then try to feminize it. I'd rather just go into something that already exists as a feminine style of leadership or a feminine respect term. And if we have a president, Madam Prime Minister, things like that. Yeah.
When did you come up with your artist's name, the whole project? What was that? How did that come to be?
When I was graduating Harvard, I remember really going inward and being like, okay, so what's the job? Like, what's the dream job? Because when I went in, I thought I had worked at Interscope for 2 years.
As an intern, right?
No. Full time. I was a digital analyst in their data marketing team. Digital marketing team, yeah.
While you were in school or after you finished?
So I finished Georgetown in 2011. That was my undergrad. And then my first job out of college for 2 years was at Interscope Records.
Okay.
Where I worked full time analyzing patterns in Spotify streams and YouTube views.
Oh.
And so my intention, even though I loved drumming, it was always, you know, in the nights and around the city and playing. I thought, let me go get my MBA from Harvard so that I can go and work at a place like a Spotify or a YouTube or even another label, so I can be shaping who we're signing, who are the the gatekeepers. How can I be responsible for programming more women artists, queer artists, artists of color, artists of different abilities? Like, how can I be part of the change from the inside? Yeah. And Harvard is the name brand school. Who's not going to pay attention at the very least to someone who has this prestigious degree? Sure. So that was my goal. But when I was graduating, I was like, man, I'm going to these like Spotify interviews and YouTube interviews, and like the biggest flex they have is like that they have beer on tap and they have like a ping pong fucking table and they have a VR gaming room and they have like the, you know, like employee resource group for queer folks and things like that. And I was like, okay, so it's college 2.0 with a really nice, comfortable salary, but I don't know. That doesn't excite me. Like, I think that's such an amazing setup, to be honest. In fact, people go to these prestigious degrees to have access to a job like that because it's a dream job. Right. And if it's supposed to be a dream job and if it doesn't excite you, you have to pay attention to that. Totally. I was like, what do I want to do? I was like, the only thing that would feel dope right now is to make my own music and tour on my own project. Even if it's small, I'd rather do that. So I made the jump and started going for it. And so you were you working at Interscope when you kind of created the artist project? Where you created Madame Gandhi? No, it was years later. It was, I had done 2 years at business school. I had graduated, and then it was Madame Gandhi. Okay. And so, I mean, you were even thinking about these kind of your activism, I guess, early on. My activism has always been there. Even when I was at Georgetown, I did do my minor in women's and gender studies. Okay. So, and activism also was deeply ingrained in our childhood. Like, my mom would always take us to volunteer. My mom and dad would always be hosting fundraisers in our home. That's why we would have these prestigious speakers. Usually it would be a ticketed event that we're hosting in our private home. And then it's giving back to a charity. So that mentality was always very ingrained. I think giving back looks like different things for different people. Yeah. But I knew that it had to be part of the mission. What do you consider an activist? Because, I mean, you're very clearly an activist through your art, through your music. You also do a lot of speaking. But have you thought about kind of what it looks like to be an activist and what, like, how someone can embody that? And what that looks like? I think you feel connected to a problem in the social sphere that your work is dedicated to changing. And I really do ask this question always. Is this aligned? Is this aligned? Like, for example, to come to this podcast, it's not to masturbate my own ego. It's to say, you, Ari, have a wonderful platform because of this amazing book that you've written. Thank you. How can I share my ideas to your audience so that I can make a wave to anyone who might be so generous as to listen? So it's not like I might be on the streets protesting, but using any kind of opportunity to make the difference that you're trying to make, I think is activism.
And using your own strengths. So one of your strengths is music and creation. And then anyone can kind of use whatever strengths they have to pursue the causes that they believe in.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm curious because, I mean, activism at the core of pretty much everything you do. When you like link up with a brand, for instance, like Adidas, how do you choose? I mean, especially like a giant corporation like that, where giant corporations are questionable. There's no perfect corporation out there.
I love this question.
How do you choose who you're going to partner with?
Yeah, I think one, very honest example is 2 years ago, I did a big ad campaign with The Gap. The Gap had hired 12 of us as our own names, not as, anonymous models, but with our name featured. To be part of their fall campaign. And not only were we in, the standard advertising in Gap stores, but they also did a lot of profile work on our activism. So the flip side of that is like Gap is notorious for fast fashion and sweatshop labor, especially in parts of South Asia like Bangladesh, where the sweatshop labor is probably the worst, that we've seen. And so that was a really difficult decision. And it's not like the money was incredible. It was not about the money in that case. It was more about like, what's the intention here? And for me, growing up in New York City, I loved the Gap. I used to go to the Gap with my mom. I used to get all my Christmas gifts for my family from the Gap. Like I loved going to the Gap. But it was always either white models or black models, what's seen as traditionally American. And so and I looked even more androgynous when we shot that 2 years ago because my hair was so much shorter. To be playing the drums, which I was in the campaign, and look very androgynous and be Indian in this big Fifth Avenue media piece was insane. So I understood the value of committing to that. Was completely not related to the sweatshop labor. It was completely related to a media play that combats lack of diversity. Representation.
And you are that representation, changing what maybe the history of their campaigns had been, showcasing you. And not just an Indian woman, but a female drummer, which we don't see represented too often as well. Are you part of the jam card community at all?
Yes,
do you know about
I just
that?
Played at the women's jam card event.
Great.
Yeah, a couple
I
months
missed
ago.
the last one, but that's great.
They had a huge one last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
at NAM.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It wasn't at NAM. It was here in LA, but yes, for NAM weekend. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
They're doing amazing work. I love Elmo and Christian, and I just think bringing people together for the organic sole purpose of like playing music is a lost concept these days, and it's fun to do that.
Yeah, cool. So getting back to kind of your music now that you have, specifically your music videos. The Top Knot Turn Up, the video. Okay, first off, well done. That is fucking incredible.
Thank you so much.
Such a cool video.
That means a lot to me.
I think all women, right? And it seems like a female director, DP. I mean, just like
I appreciate you being so well researched.
For sure. But like, so you're an independent artist, right?
Yes.
Okay. As an independent artist, and most of the listeners are independent artists, how did you create a video with such high production value, incredible people, hair, makeup, I mean, just the drone shots, the location was incredible. I mean, it's a brilliant video. It's really cool.
Thank you.
How did you do it?
So I'm so happy you asked this question, and I'm so happy to know that many of your audience is independent musicians. So the number one thing that I've learned is that we have to diversify our source of income. That's number one, because music sometimes pays the bills, but then when you've put out an album and now you're 2-3 years out from that album, obviously the royalties will decrease no matter what, unless some other person has licensed it. The second source of income for me is licensing opportunities. A great example of that was that I had spoken at this. Somebody invited me to speak at their first fledgling kind of backyard initiative in Venice. And there wasn't much in it for me because it was their first one. We didn't have a guaranteed audience, but I liked the person, I liked her vibe. And I was like, all right, you know what? I will speak at your first event. I'm happy to do it. And in the audience of that was this woman who works at a huge ad agency. So now she invites me 6-7 months later to come and give a keynote at their ad agency for Women's Month.
Cool.
So I give this keynote, I perform. Then one of their people approaches me. They're like, this timing is crazy. We're doing this big ad campaign. And this song you played second to last, what was the name of that song? And I was like, oh, it's called Yellow Sea. Within a week, they had licensed the song for the campaign.
Whoa.
And it was more money than I had ever made in one check, just from doing what's, aligned. So many opportunities come from being like, I don't know, people talk about being in the flow. Sometimes I'm in the flow, sometimes I'm really not in the flow. But when I am, these kinds of synergistic things happen because people see you, they see your hustle, they see the genuineness. So that's one example, licensing, obviously.
Sure.
I give a lot of public speaking opportunities and speeches. So if I speak at a corporation or a university, it's a win-win because obviously it's financially sustainable for me, but also I'm bringing this radical message to a place like Spotify, where if I worked at Spotify, I probably wouldn't be able to say as many honest things as I'm saying on a panel as a visitor.
Sure.
So that's one. And then, of course, small things. Like I did a little bit of consulting here and there. I remember, playing drums for somebody here and there. Like as many small scoring opportunities. So that's an example.
Yeah.
And then for Top Knot specifically, of course, we had a lot of people donate their time and their energy because they saw the value of it or they emotionally aligned with the words and lyrics of that song.
Yeah.
But I think second most important thing that I learned when I was at business school is like understanding how value is defined to somebody else. Like, if I give a tour, for example, and the budget is really low and I can only offer a musician like $150 to play the couple nights, like one per show, $150, but that might not be enough for them. I try to see other things that might be valuable to you. Like, you have family in one of the locations. Does it help if I give you a day off or we structure a day off in the tour for you to spend time with family and I'm flying you out in and out? It's not on your budget.
Sure. Or,
you're trying to promote yourself as a drummer. What if we get you great content, video content, and I make a video just for you that has nothing to do with my project? Does that help? What are other things that I can offer?
Are these conversations that you have with someone you're
very open?
Okay.
Open.
I mean, that's a really important point because I think a lot of us get caught up in the numbers and the finances and just kind of, trying to work it out on a spreadsheet, black and white, but we don't think about the value proposition that's not on a spreadsheet and what you can offer, the human component of it all.
Yes, and I'm happy you say that, but I think one aside to make also is like, you have to be honest. You can't lie either.
Right.
Like I see a lot of people trying to finesse like, oh, we don't have budget, but we'd be happy to give you the photos after. And the rest of the team is staying in the expensive hotels, flying first class, So then you're like, listen, we're not stupid.
Right.
We're not stupid. You can't lie to us.
Yeah.
If you have the budget, say you have the budget and pay. If you don't have the budget, how come I'm seeing it being spent and mismanaged?
Yes.
So for me, I really genuinely try to look and say, what is fair? What is right? And luckily, having experienced drums for other people like Kehlani, like M.I.A, I know what the stars are paying their touring artists. So I have some sense of what's fair, what would be the industry price, and maybe how much I'm falling short of that, or if I'm able to achieve it.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen it now on both sides as the hired gun and now as the, the boss, the employer, the leader of the operation. What are the responsibilities more so that on the other side of it as the leader now that you maybe didn't necessarily see as just the hired gun?
I think one of the biggest things is feeling responsible for somebody else's personal growth. I have 2 or 3 team members who've now been on my team for like coming on 3 or 4 years and making sure that I'm not giving them the same tasks over and over again, making sure that every 6 months to at least a year, there's like a new set of tasks and there's, increased finances where it feels fair based on how the job description has evolved. And it keeps me hustling too, because if I'm stagnant, if I'm in the same place that I was 2 years ago, then why would that person feel incentivized to stay with me?
Sure.
You feel responsible for somebody else's career, especially people who are younger than me. You know, I'm like, damn, I really want this to go up, to be amazing, so that all of these years that you've spent feel worth it.
I mean, those are great things that any boss in any industry can be thinking about and should be thinking about. Just for, to reduce burnout rates and keep your people inspired.
And genuine care, you know. I think we have a pretty open dialogue. I think I've also learned I've been better about boundaries. I think there's times when I kind of pendulum around it where I'm so lenient, like, are you okay? How's everything? Yeah, take this time off, take that time off. Yes, I'm happy to cover that expense, da-da-da. And then it's like too much in that direction. And then it's scary to have to pull it back in because you don't want to look like you're either like, frantic or that you don't know how to manage it. So finding that happy balance where it's like, these are the expectations. These are the boundaries.
Yes.
If these boundaries work for you, you're welcome. If they don't work for you, you're totally allowed to say that they don't work for you.
Yeah.
And this job is not a good fit. So I've learned how to say that ahead of time. These are the things that matter to me.
Yeah.
And if that's exciting to you, then this is going to work really well.
Do you have many people who are on your team that have, I guess, more permanent members, or a lot of people per tour? Or
no, 3 are permanent.
Okay.
3 or even 4, I could say, because my best friend steps in and out a lot to help, and we've been doing that for almost 3 or 4 years now.
Who's your current team that you?
Nora is my day-to-day manager. Okay. Nora's been with me the second longest. Okay. Mars already graduated USC, already moved to Houston, and is still working for me, which I love. Cool. She is doing communications and blog and website management.
Nice.
There's a lot of updates that have to happen, newsletters, posts, things like that.
Sure.
I do Instagram because it's my voice, but I do see Twitter, Facebook as, at least for me, as more just like content generation, sharing what's happening and updates. It's less in my voice. So Mars helps me manage that. We also run this amazing playlist every Wednesday, and today's Wednesday, so we have a new one up. It's called The Future is Female on Spotify.
Yeah.
We have 30 songs every week that we have done dedicated for the past 3 years without fail. I think we missed Christmas, but that's all.
Wow.
Where we program 30 songs and by up and coming or known artists that we love. So those are the 2 members, and then Julia has just started PAing for me about a year ago, and Julia's doing strictly
production assistant.
Yeah, exactly. Doing strictly like, you know, being on set, helping me pull outfits, helping me like get to hair and makeup, shit like that, which years ago I didn't have a need for that. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But then when you do it, you're realizing like, oh, I'm a little bit like debilitated. I'm starving, but I'm in hair and makeup. I need somebody who's dedicated to me, who's not part of the, you know, Gap or Adidas team, whose strict job is to help me with my needs so that I can operate at full speed.
How often are you doing these high production videos? Good
question. We started off last year doing a bunch. I was doing this big campaign with Adidas for their new fragrance. It's a boxing commercial. It's really cool because they show me as both a drummer and as an athlete.
Cool.
And wellness for musicians is very important to me. After this, I'm going to be boxing, actually, which is great.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Are you a boxer? Are you trained boxer?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for a while.
Okay.
You know, boxing you have to do every day to be properly sparring and stuff like that, and I want to get to that phase. But that's why whenever I'm here in LA, I put in the time, because when I'm traveling, it's harder to maintain.
How do you stay healthy and active on the road? Very challenging. Do you have a routine?
I do. I think the best life hack is a jump rope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you have an Apple Watch? No.
No.
That's funny because I didn't really get the Apple Watch for the fitness benefits, but now I'm starting to get into it because now on my team we all have a challenge. So like everyone's like hella trying to get their calories and their steps in, which is really funny. In fact, it's getting so bad. Like last night I only had 20 calories left to burn to like get to the dedicated amount. So I got out of bed like a loser. And jump roped for like literally 4 minutes, and then it finished the 20 calories that I needed. It was so funny.
Good for you.
And then I was able to rest easy. It was so dumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a jump rope is an underestimated, really good hack because you can do a lot of exercises with the jump rope itself. I hate hotel gyms. I never go to them. People always swear by them, but like it's not fun. They're usually in the basement.
Yeah.
I like Googling what's the local Soul Cycle or CrossFit, or like what's the local gym.
Do you do CrossFit?
Yeah.
Okay. And Soul Cycle.
I mean, whatever, you know, like
Very
I like
LA of you.
So LA. Rumble. I mean,
yeah.
But
cool.
But yeah, I mean, as if it's fun, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so.
Do you like running? Has that always been your thing?
Yeah,
so
but
that's
I can't
fun
do it on
for
a
you.
treadmill. I like running in the world.
Gotcha.
Like it's a fun thing to be like, okay, I have 30 minutes and I'm in a new place and I have to leave tomorrow because my flight is booked tomorrow.
Yeah.
At least if I run, I'm seeing stuff, I'm getting my workout in. It's cute.
Do you try to run in a lot of the cities that you tour through if you have time?
Yeah,
sweet.
Definitely.
So running, that's one of the things that put you on the map nationally, kind of like was one of your viral moments, an early viral moment, when you ran the marathon. Which marathon was it?
It was the London Marathon.
The London Marathon. And you were on your period and you decided that you weren't going to try to struggle with any of the stuff that people do because it's not
comfortable.
Right. I would imagine that running a marathon with a tampon is probably not that comfortable.
Yeah, and I'm sure many people do it, and I think it was my first marathon. I remember being worried that I'm even on my cycle.
Yeah.
Like day one, usually I just try to chill
and
get through the day, and usually I have a little bit, like, I'll take like an Advil or something because it's, you feel a little bit of pain in your stomach. You just want to chill out. So I just didn't know how the marathon would go. And I was like, listen, I would rather just bleed freely and run and see how this goes than use something that might not be so comfortable to actually go running in. And I wrote about this experience on my blog post because the run went so well and it was such a good time and I felt comfortable. Finished it. Wow. We didn't even walk. That's how good it was. I ran the whole time.
Oh my gosh.
I was so energized. It was really cool. And it was it was really, I think the reason spiritually, I don't have a mechanical reason why it went viral, but I have a spiritual reason. Like, I just genuinely felt proud of myself. I think that was one of the few moments in my life where I can point to where I didn't feel the need to show it to my dad or mom or show it to my friend, or like, I felt like, oh my God, I ran a marathon. I'm not much of a runner. Like, that felt so cool.
Yeah. And
then I was like my best self on my cycle on day one.
Wow.
Where usually I just kind of believe the misnomer that we're not supposed to be A+. So I felt really proud, and that's why I wrote about it, because I wanted to commemorate it for myself. And then someone picked up that story who works at Policy Mike, which is now just Mike.com.
Sure.
And then it started trending. Somebody else saw it. They reposted it. I mean, it wasn't even my name. Most of the articles didn't even know my name. It was just like feminist hero. And I was like, oh, cool. I like the sound of that.
Right.
So, many people do think it was intentional, was planned.
Sure.
And I always say very openly that it really wasn't. It was just an act of it was an act of self-care in a way.
That is really interesting because you are so much of an activist and and an outward feminist and outspoken feminist. But this was just logistically
the best way to do it.
Right.
Totally. But I knew it was radical. Like, I don't think I knew of anybody free bleeding in general.
Sure.
And I've never done that for myself before.
Okay, yeah.
So I knew it was radical, and I also knew but I also felt like this is badass. Like, bleeding from anywhere trying to run 26 miles is like punk rock, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like on some M.I.A. mentality type
dope.
shit. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you start off your Visions EP with clips from your speeches. And one of them is, you say, stigma is one of the most effective forms of oppression because it denies us the ability to talk comfortably and confidently about our own bodies. And do you find that, I think just like bleeding in general and menstrual cycle, there's always been a stigma around that. Is this what that connects to, or okay?
It's very much the context, and when I pulled that quote, the context of that moment in the speech was definitely me talking about the marathon.
Okay.
But it's applied to so many different things. Like, it's applied to masturbation, it's applied to pleasure, it's applied to sex positivity, especially through a female lens in general. The music video that I just put out is called See Me Through, and my two friends who are married who directed it also star as the two lovers in the video itself. And I wanted to cast two queer women to tell out and play out this story of love in my video, because so often we see two women on screen, but it's directed by men. And so then it's catering more to like a masculine fantasy of what two women having sex might look like, rather than an authentic experience that came from myself. And so nothing wrong with male fantasy, but it's also important to have a narrative where we get to own our own narrative in that space. So that's what that quote relates to. And there are so many things in our culture that are stigmatized, where people feel awkward talking about them.
Definitely.
But to whose expense? At our expense.
Right. Our, as in women.
In this case,
Yes.
women, people who bleed, etc.
Yes. So I'm curious about your creation process, how you make your music. Do you have a home studio? Do you work with, so the producer on this new record, Dave Lewis, and did you co-produce most of this stuff together?
Dave actually did. He just did the first song, Waiting for Me.
Okay, cool. So what is your creation process? Do you do a lot of collaboration, co-writing? Is it mostly, do you start on your own? What DAW do you use? Like, how does this all work?
I love using Ableton.
Okay.
I do have a home studio. What I love to do is usually I get ideas when I'm like by myself. I love to sing when I'm by myself. Like yesterday, I was boxing, and then I was in the parking lot, and the parking lot reverb was really nice.
Cool.
So I was singing,
Nice.
and then I liked the lyrics, so I recorded them into my phone, and then I'll build up a lot of those. And if I notice myself singing one tune kind of more often than others, I'll say, I actually do want to stay with this vibe and make it into a song. And then I'll sit down at Ableton and I'll record vocal loops. I'll choose a BPM and then I'll record vocal loops because I love starting with the vocals and then the drums, like a cappella and then on drums. It's the easiest for me. That's the most raw.
Yeah.
And usually with drums, I don't actually enjoy programming them electronically. I use audio to record it. So I'll just put a mic over my drum set, which is like most people's worst nightmare because you're not miking each drums individually. Right. But the thing is, you are moving quick. It's the sketching process. Okay. It's not about the quality of the drums in that moment because you're going to re-record everything anyway.
Gotcha.
So I just put one mic over my drum set at home, or even if it's a percussive thing, and I just like, you know, and then I have the loop, boom. Now I just double it and bring it, copy and paste. And I start maybe chopping or affecting that little vocal that I might have recorded, or then start laying down some keys or chords or little synth patterns, bass, and I start sketching out what I think could be the song. Once I have that demo, then I don't mind to go to a friend who has a sound that I like, or aspirationally reach out to a producer on Instagram whose work I like, and say, hey, here's a bounce of this really simple demo that I've made, but this is the idea of the song.
Yeah.
And let's finish it together.
Yeah. Cool. And has that always been your creation process from the beginning? At least for this project?
Yeah, it really has. I think my Ableton skill sets have gotten a lot better over the years. I think in the beginning it was more side by side, but then, you know, not that I'm really not a control freak. Yeah. But it's burdensome to be telling somebody else what to do. Yeah. Especially because unfortunately many people then think they're the ones doing it. And you're like, that's not even fair. I'm asking you to do X, Y, and Z. Sure. Be fair. Yeah. I'll always say when someone's made a contribution to the record. Totally. But know the difference between an engineer and a producer. Absolutely. Producer is contributing creatively. An engineer is you're an extension technically of me because I don't operate Pro Tools. And so you're doing how I'm asking you to do. So I think those nuances are the reason why I like to come in with a project close to done.
So when you create these Ableton demos, is that what you'd consider them initially? Yeah. Do any of your initial tracking make up on the final? Yes, we use it, of course. You do? Yeah, definitely. Okay. Even the mic over the drum set?
Yeah, because if you double that over really dope mic, it's just cool, extra, like raw, unique stuff. Or we'll affect it. You know, we'll pitch it an octave higher. So now it's just like on See Me Through. Yeah. We took the main drum stem and then we tripled the speed of it and reversed it. So you get this really cool effect in See Me Through of like, which is just techniques in Ableton that allow you to manipulate sound in really unique ways. Cool.
I like that in a lot of your music, the drums are front and center and that you've maintained that. Because I mean, a lot of artists who start as instrumentalists or something, as you go through the pop production machine, a lot of their what makes them special and unique kind of gets stripped away because it's not necessarily in the vision of the producer you might be working with, but you've kind of held on to that. Has that been something your drumming at least?
Definitely, because I think the thing that makes most art dope is what sounds unique, what you can't get anywhere else. Yes. And I'm telling you, one fun thing about doing these cheesy fitness classes is that you hear what bullshit is on the top 40 radio in the current moment, you know? Yeah.
I love that you start off the record. Also, it was, I don't want every day to turn up to the sound of my own oppression.
Right. That's how I feel.
That's the content of a lot of the music that we work out to. Yes. Right. That's on the radio. Yeah, for sure. No,
so there's I was at Rumble. They have all women in the class. There's not even one guy in the class. And the music is saying things that, you know, using the B word, using the H word to refer to women. And it's like, how are you going to program this music when the main people funding this business are women paying $35 for a class?
Do you bring that up to them?
I do. And actually a lot of times they're just so disconnected. Like, I didn't even realize. Oh yeah. Like, well, we're a hip hop thing. We play hip hop music. I'm like, well, you play hip hop music, but all your clientele is white. Like, have you ever thought about that? You know, it's just like, there's so many layers. So I actually don't go there that often. I went there only because it was the only class that was having an 8:30 class. Most last people's classes are like at 7.
Right.
So yeah.
No, that's important. That makes sense. Nice. So now have you always been independent, or were you with
Yes.
Interscope? You were just working at Interscope
Yeah.
as an employee. You
Yes.
never signed
No, not at
as
all.
to a major.
No.
And has that been an intentional decision from the get-go?
I think it's a mixture. I think I really do understand the value of a label.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea that a label can handle some of the logistical aspects that I handle currently, but also they can add enormous value in terms of playlisting, banner advertisements, pushing the music to places that otherwise you wouldn't have access to.
Right.
Performing in really corporate spaces like an iHeartRadio Fest or things like that are purely labels are programming those spaces.
Right.
That we wouldn't have access to otherwise. Marketing budgets. Like, for example, I put out See Me Through, but I'm not going to spend money on advertising dollars because it's kind of like a gamble. Like, I can pay $20 and it'll be like, for $50 more, you can reach 600 more people.
Right.
So then you're like, oh, okay, here's another 60.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Well, for the, so unless you have a team who knows intentionally how to spend that money and target, it doesn't make sense. So these are the areas that I think a label would offer a huge amount of value. And I do think a major label more so than an indie, because in my own way, I'm operating as an indie label, At the same time, of course, there are the negative trade-offs. They own the masters. They're asking for things in perpetuity. They're trying to get a cut of a lot of things that I've invested over my own years. So I think the more educated I am going into a label deal, I would really pretty much stand strong on these aspects that I care about. And if a label wants to do something, hopefully there's enough room for negotiating.
Yeah. I mean, you have the benefit of knowing yourself very well, and so it doesn't seem like you would, be going to these label meetings just kind of starry-eyed and basically like tell me where to sign and I'll sign whatever. You're throwing a bunch of money at me and oh my gosh, your capital or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's the struggle that a lot of young artists fall into, is they see a blip of a little bit of immediate success, something, and then a label will grab them and throw them through the system, but they don't know themselves enough.
I love that.
And then they kind of lose track of who they are.
Yes.
And then, 10 years later, they have a mental breakdown and they quit music because they were not true to themselves.
Exactly. I'm so happy you're bringing that up because many people don't want to talk about that. But see, let's say you're young and you get signed, and then you have exponential growth that's really different than the growth you've had. That's because the label has pumped money and resources into something. It's like injecting something. It's like Botox. It is. So you have this maybe one-time benefit, or even liposuction, these different kinds of things where we're trying to get a one-time win for at the expense of long-term gains. So emotionally, as you just said, and maturity-wise, you're not at that level, or you're put onto a huge stage that you haven't had years to practice to be deserving of how to perform on that stage.
Yes.
You look at a lot of young rappers, they don't have stage movement. They're just hopping around left and right, and they've taken 3 shots beforehand because it's so nerve-wracking. For me, I feel I want to organically get to a place where my stages match the quality of my performance in an honest way.
Yeah.
I'm speaking at TED in April.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank
That's incredible.
I got accepted as a TED Fellow this year.
Wow.
So instead of doing TEDx like I've done many times, it's the main TED.
Amazing.
So we get a main TED Talk at the end of it.
Yeah.
If this had happened even 3 years ago, I would have been so nervous. Now it's like, duh. Like, of course I'm qualified for that. I've practiced so many times. I've given so many speeches. I'm not nervous. I love being on a stage.
It's a natural progression of everything that you've been doing. How many shows would you say you've performed as Madame Gandhi?
I mean, I'd like to think I'm at hundreds at this point. I don't think I'm at 1,000 yet.
Yeah.
But I remember there was one artist signed to Interscope. He's like a guitarist. I think he's Irish or British. And he would always say at the beginning of each show, welcome to show number 563. Welcome to show number 825. So I thought that was really cute. And I was wondering, how many have I played?
Yeah.
But I think what's cool is that every time I asked to be given a talk, I always do 3 or 4 songs at the end.
Oh, nice. And that's part of your just
the package.
Yeah, the package.
Yeah, we
Cool.
do it because it's mutually beneficial. That way I'm showing the very thing that I've just given a speech about, and we're like uplifting a bunch of people, and then I usually get them dancing and in their body, and it's holistic.
Are you going to do that at TED? You only have 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, they give me a separate performance and a separate talk.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's dope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. All right, nice. So I'm curious about the indie hustle because we're all, as all the indie artists, especially people listening, are trying to figure out their own way and try to figure out how to make things happen. I love that you brought up diversifying your revenue streams, but also, I mean, you mentioned you were DMing people on Instagram, people that you wanted to work with. I mean, that's a really interesting creative outreach tactic. I mean, your Instagram is very strong and it's very much on brand. So you go to your Instagram and instantly you can tell kind of who you are. Speak to that a little bit, actually, the Instagram component of your entire operation and the thought process behind that.
I think the number one thought process is only to post when you want to. Like, I have a music video yesterday, but I didn't post today. I think, any other person would be like, how did you not post today? It's your fucking music video is out. Like, if I had a label, they would be hella blowing my phone up. Like, how did you not post today, right?
Right.
But I don't want to post today.
Yeah.
I don't feel motivated to post today. I feel I need a moment. I need to breathe for a second. I really want to go to the gym and I want to like sink into it for a second, and then I'll have something to say. So the number one thing is really only post when you have something to say. Otherwise, you're just contributing to the clutter and the bullshit.
And the noise.
Yeah. So on a psychological perspective, I don't want to contribute to somebody else's noise. I want to post only shit that I think is really dope and really sincere. And also, it doesn't work when I'm not inspired. Anytime I really feel that way. Anytime I post something that's like out of necessity, it never performs well anyway. And the whole point is to have it perform well.
Yeah, and it seems like it's a natural extension of who you are. And so if you don't have something to say, it would be fairly transparent that if you posted something like
it's
that,
fake,
people would say it's
disingenuous.
fake. Yeah. And nothing nothing you do seems to be inauthentic or fake. And so I think that's a really important thing, because I think, social media for a lot of artists is a
work.
Yeah, and it's a struggle. It's challenging to know how to be your authentic self through this other medium. I think with the music, that's easy. That's or at least easier for a lot of artists, because that's our first love. That's, where we went to first. But now these new mediums, these new forms, it's just like, how do you communicate your message authentically through these other mediums? It's like, okay, we got the music part down, and maybe even the music video part down, but then like all these Twitter and Instagram and now TikTok, like, how do we do all this stuff?
I mean, one thing I really do is pay attention to the few Instagram accounts that I actively enjoy searching for and watching and checking them out. Like, I love watching Tierra Wax stuff. You know her?
No.
She just got signed to Interscope last year or 2 years ago or whatever, and she's known for putting out an album of only 1 minute songs. And she did that so that she could make a music video for each 1 minute song and put all 15 of them on on Instagram as the album.
Wow. She made the album for Instagram.
Yes. And on Spotify, sure enough, they are all 1 minute fucking songs. So now you're not only benefiting off this like cool viral concept. Yeah. Now, from a Spotify streams revenue perspective, for me to listen to the song, I'm going to play it like 6 times more than I probably would, because it keeps ending. And you're going to get the same amount of streaming royalties per 1 minute song as you would for a 6 minute song.
Yeah.
So funny.
Right.
So I think just like being you is really dope. And she's just very like interesting on her social media, and she'll just be off of it for a week and then be super on it and then off. And I think I like to operate the same, which is just whatever's honest. I also love Justin Bieber's Instagram, because anyone who knows me knows that I just have such a crush on Justin Bieber. I love him so much. Yeah. And there's a few others, but I think the best compliment I've ever gotten is someone that's like, oh, like you're, in real life, you are how I thought you would be. I think that's a really good metric. There's many people who have like a huge Instagram account, and then I meet them and I'm like, your energy is so whack. Like you're not like a vibrant. You don't have an aura. Like, where's your glow? And they're on their phone at the event, which makes sense why they have a poppin' Instagram account, because they be on that shit 24/7. So then you meet them and you're like, and it's all for the gram, truly. And they're very successful, and a lot of opportunities come to them because they're now essentially a marketing platform for other brands to want to give them stuff to market on their platform with 1 million followers.
Right. But it's not necessarily an extension of them, their authentic selves.
Yeah, it's like it's an influencer business model. You know? And I value the aspects and opportunities that have happened because of whatever small following my 50K has brought in. But I definitely get a lot of spam things that are like, we want to advertise with you. We want to, the requirement, $200 to post this, and this. And I was like, ew, like this is so problematic.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's you're now at a point where you know what to say no to and how to say no. And I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are like $200. Yes. Oh my gosh. Just because
it's
of
fair.
this thing.
Yeah, you're right.
But at the same time, by saying no and by actively stating and expressing who you are not and what you won't do, that makes your followers that much more loyal to who you are.
Yes, because it's not going to be crap.
Exactly.
And even for Adidas, they sent this long deck of like what they want me to post and when. And, for certain things, I do respect it because I understand it's a coordinated posting day, for example, maybe on many people's accounts. So they want me participating in that viral moment, so to speak. But then there's other times when I'm like, no, it needs to look more like this. My audience will resonate more if it's like this. Small hacks that I'm aware of. Like, for example, they sent me this really ugly square that had the photo of me boxing, and then it said underneath in like what felt like a PowerPoint like screenshot. I swear to God, it was just so like lo-fi.
Yeah.
It just said, own your zone by Adidas, something, and it just looked ugly. And I was like, I swear, if you just send me the raw photo, and I'll post a caption that's similar to what you already have written, the algorithm will like it better. Because anytime you post words in the Instagram picture, the algorithm doesn't promote it unless you're buying advertising dollars, which is what it wants you to do. So, and then of course it worked a lot better posting just the photo.
And that's understanding your brand. That's understanding what's going to resonate with your audience and having that conversation with the brand that you're partnering with. And they will respect you that much more because you're seeing what their ultimate objectives
is anyway.
are.
Totally.
And you're just saying, let me help you achieve your ultimate objective.
Yep.
I know my audience better than you know my audience.
Yeah.
So let's collaborate on this together.
And our goals are aligned. I want my audience to know that I'm doing really cool things, and I want my audience to know about your product because that's why we agreed to this deal. But I was going to say too, I think a lot of us are very aggressive with brands, with labels, with big entities, especially when we're indie. And I think we're taught to be more aggressive than might be necessary. I think one of my favorite things that I learned when I was in school too is this notion of unlocking value for all people. And it's this very simple story where there was two sisters and they were both baking something and they both reached for the last orange in the kitchen and they're both fighting over it for each of their recipes because they both need an orange. And finally, the parent comes in and just slices the orange in half and gives half to each sister and says, figure it out, stop fighting. But had they communicated, they would have learned that one sister actually just needed the rind of the orange for the recipe and the other sister only needed the inside of the orange for the recipe. And both could have unlocked maximum value for both parties with what was available on the table.
Wow.
And that conversation and that concept is so powerful because if you understand what's in it for everybody and how value is defined for each party, everybody can be winning simultaneously.
If the communication is open.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So as part of the indie hustle and releasing music and videos constantly, what is your release strategy like? Do you release the videos? Well, I know you don't, but what is the thought process behind releasing videos after you release songs? Have you ever done them on the same day? Have you preempted a single release with the video on YouTube?
No, that's
or what's
a cool
that?
question. I think one of the coolest things that I did when I was at Interscope was that I remember this was starting to be a really big conversation because videos were now being released on YouTube like never before. And it was actually the Wild West in 2011 in the sense that the labels were really sheepish to put the videos on YouTube. But everyone was like, if you want people to watch the video, it has to go here. Yeah. That's why Vivo was created to more officially monetize premium content. And it's a direct deal with the labels to make sure that the videos are seen in a different light than all the crap that's uploaded by anyone to YouTube.
Right.
So I remember learning that the question was, do you put the music video out before the single, like back in the day? So it's basically a marketing tool.
Right.
Or do you put the single out and then put the video out so you get this double sort of explosive marketing play on the music to drive sales both on the single release and on the video release day? And I did this project where I looked at the highest grossing singles for the label in 2012, and I looked where their video was placed in relation to that, and I found that without fail, it was always to release a video after in this day and age, because you're gonna make a big splash on the single coming out, on the music, on the audio, on the artwork, and then you're gonna make another big splash on the video, and if people like the video, they go and stream or buy the song. So that was a huge learning. And then you don't want to put the video out too far after the music. You want to put it out within 1 to 2 weeks. It was a pretty quick turnaround.
Do you find that that's still true today?
I think so. For Top Knot Turn Up, we did something similar.
1 to 2 weeks after the single?
Well, no, I guess not for Top Knot Turn Up.
Okay.
It was just that I did Top Knot Turn Up on the week of my album release. So it was a week after the album release,
Gotcha.
But it wasn't a week after we had put out Top Knot as a single.
Sure.
And that's because Top Knot came out a year before the rest of the album.
Right.
I had always perceived it as a single, and then I liked it living in this body of work.
So video after the single release.
Yes.
That's what you kind of stand by still
100%.
to this day?
Because if somebody likes the video, that now they want to go and add it to their Spotify and it's not there to add.
Right.
What a missed opportunity.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
And vice versa. If they've already fucked with the song, now they're hyped to see the video.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Or they know the song, so the video has more emotional value.
For sure. Is that when you're creating these videos and you're working with these directors, do you try to stay as true to the initial concept behind the song with the visual component?
I think so.
Well?
I definitely feel like I have synesthesia with the songs. I see the colors and the sentiment and the feeling and the mood. And then similarly to how I describe my production strategy, I write down and make a Pinterest of all the things that I see in my brain. And then I try to bring on the director or team of directors who's appropriate for that vision.
Cool.
And I definitely have worked with folks who are very collaborative with me. I think I had one experience for Bad Habits where I had a vision for the song and it was pretty honored close to my vision. But I was constantly advised to stay out of the director's way, to let the director do their thing. And I listened because it was my first bigger budget music video where I had saved up to fund it. And I was like, okay, let me play by the industry rules. And it was not the way that I like to do things. Because then a lot of problems happened where someone was complaining about this and that. And I only found out after the fact, none of these things were brought to my attention. You know, going over time and being expected to do things, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm I'm really good at managing those kinds of things because I have that skill set. Yeah. And I understand you don't want to stress me out on set, but these are not stressful things for me.
I mean, so I'm assuming this is something that you now kind of communicate and have these conversations.
Oh yeah, that's why Top
on.
Knot and See Me Through went infinitely better to the extent that they were joyful. We did long editing sessions. The directors were both so inclusive. Oh, you want to come by? Let's make the edits together. Cool. Very different than my previous experience, which was you get 2 edits, and if you don't like it, too bad. You know, we're busy, unavailable. The deadline was already passed. All this shit, and it's you're making art. You know,
right. And I mean, because it's such an extension of you, and the vision is so clearly what you know, part of your vision and part of the song. I mean, it makes sense that you want to be part of that process and all of the process. And because to kind of stay true to that art. So I have one final question that I ask everybody. What does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
I think when people who you admire now admire you back. I think that's what I'm hype on. When people who I fan out for, they already think my work is amazing. Because then what happens is then you have access to people to collaborate with them in an equal, sort of mutually respectful, mutually admiring way. Different than if I reach out to somebody and I'm clearly in the sort of lesser power position because I'm the fan of their work, and they might feel like they're doing me the favor of collaborating or sharing or whatever. I want to think of myself as someone who's contributing value to the most famous person, the most successful person, so that they can say, oh my gosh, when you said this, it really spoke to me, and thank you, because I was on Jay Leno and Oprah and I was flying on my yacht and I never thought about this, and it was really humbling, and I would love to have lunch with you. You know, something like that where I don't feel intimidated. I feel I have something to offer. So to me, that's success. Yeah.
Amazing. Madame Gandhi, Kiran, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you.